Shalom everyone, it's Eliah Ben Yaakov. Came to do a little quick video, man. I got a bunch of different things I want to share with people. I took a lot of time off from just actually dropping videos back to back. For those who it's their first time ever tuning into one of these videos, I say Toda Yahweh for sending you this way, and to share these teachings that maybe you can enlighten me, or maybe I will enlighten you. Now, another big matter that's been going on amongst the Black Hebrew Israelite community, and I use that word very lightly when I say Black Hebrew Israelite, because I just consider myself to be, a child of Israel, a child of Yasharel, and nothing much more. But we have titles and epithets that are being applied to people because that's just how it is in America. We live in a stereotypical world where everybody has to have a stereotype or has to have some kind of moniker to describe who you are. One of the major disputes amongst our community is pronunciation. People will say, "Oh, you're speaking Yiddish." Some people will say, "Oh, you're speaking, ancient Hebrew." Or some people will say, "You're speaking, this letter doesn't exist in Canaanite language." And we're arguing and we're debating and we're fighting and we're fussing over things that are very small matters. That honestly, that there's no possible way that we can actually determine that, for the fact that the land of Canaan consisted of many different people. And for one, Hebrew is a Shemitic language. There are many different Shemitic languages, such as Ethiopic, which we know as the Ge'ez language. We know as Arabic is Shemitic. And even if you think about it, the Asiatic languages, the Eastern Asiatic languages, such as Chinese and Vietnamese and those things, they're pretty Shemitic also, because they use cuneiform, almost like cuneiform slash hieroglyphic type of script that they write their language in. So what I wanted to do, Yahweh led me to a few scriptures on this subject real quick to share with people, to prove that the Hebrew people were a mixed multitude, for one. Okay, they were a mixed multitude when they came out of the land of Mitzrayim, or the Nile River Valley. And the people of Egypt spoke one language, and the people in the land of Canaan spoke one language, and the Hebrews, they spoke a certain language too. But we all have to wonder, how was it possible that they all were communicating? So either these men, when Abraham would be in Haran, and then he would go, which is in almost northern Iraq, and then he would go all the way to Canaan and would be able to talk with people. He was friends with the Hittites, he was friends with Abimelech and different people. So you have to think to yourself, how did they communicate when Abraham first went into the land of Mitzrayim? How did he communicate with these people if they spoke a different language? So I just wanted to touch on a few things, just to say this is something that I don't think we should really be arguing about, on how you pronunciate it. And I'm going to go back into my lessons. This is what I would call a minor video, I guess, because this doesn't really thrive too much on salvation or the recognition of our people, but what this is just pretty much a lesson to show you that we cannot argue over dialect and over choices of words. That does not, that's not a legible argument. So we're going to go into Barashit. We're going to go to Barashit, which is Genesis, to the 11th chapter and the first verse, and it goes a little something like this: Wahi kal haaretz, and the entire earth had safa echath, one lip or one language, ud barim achadim, and one dialect or word. Now see, this is a very short verse, but it's a very informative verse. Here we see that this is during the time, this is in Genesis 11, so this is in the present time when the people had migrated out of the Hindu Kush mountains, out of Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan area where we were after the flood, and they moved into this valley, which was in Shinar. And Shinar was the valley which we know to be in between the Tigris and the Euphrates River, which is in modern-day Iraq. So at this point in time, it was stating here in 11:1 that the entire earth had one lip. It had one language and one word, one dialect. Okay, they spoke the same. They spoke the same. And what I was really analyzing when I thought about this, I was like, at to me, what I believe most likely what was going on at that time is that people would speak a language which we can't necessarily attribute it to being necessarily just Hebrew. Hebrew was a language that was developed when they were in the wilderness during the days of Moshe, because they came out of Kemet. And that's something else I want to point out to the people, that we must understand that, the children of Jacob was living in Canaan, but Yusuf had been sold into the Egyptians through the hand of the Ishmaelites and his brothers, and therefore he was raised in the house of the king of Kemet, which the Hebrew calls him Pharaoh. But the king of Kemet, the king of Mitzrayim, or ancient Egypt, he raised Yusuf as his own. So we got to remember that. And as time went on, Yusuf took a wife, which was of one of the priests. So Yusuf was a part of the priestlyhood in the land of Kemet, which means he would have been familiar with Egyptian religion. And pretty much I'm knowing that he had a remembrance of the ancient religion of his family and his fathers, but he was separated from them. And he had two children, Ephraim and Manasseh, when he was in Kemet. So they would have grew up being Egyptians. They were not Canaanites. So that fourth right there will let you know that they spoke different languages, different dialects. And the original language was probably consistent of all sounds that we use today. Because really the only thing that changes the language is the connections of the sounds. A lot of sounds are the same, like wa, yomer, for instance. We use wa, yo, and mer in English, but just not as in the form of wa, yomer. But we use those sounds, and that's the thing about it. So the first ancient language probably was a collection of every single sound that you can possibly think of, but a pure language as far as in form, as far as in put together. But here we see something happen. After they was all of one language and one lip, we're going to stay in Barashit, and we're going to go to 11:6 now. And it says, Wayomer Yahweh, then Yahweh said, Hein am echad. Look, the people are one, or the people are united. This word echad, it means one or united. Wesafa achat lekulam. And by them, the language is united. So he's saying that, look, the people are one, the people are united, and by them their language is united. So for the fact of them being united, their language was united. Kind of what the modern American system, United Nations system, is trying to do today. For the world to speak, you can speak your little simple dialects, but English is starting to become the worldwide usage of a language. And they're trying to replace that even in Shemitic lands, and that's what a lot of those wars are getting started about. But here he says that their language are united, the people are one, and it goes on to say, Wazeh ha chilam la asoth, and this they began doing. Okay? Oatha lo yibar ser mehem. And now nothing will be restrained from them, ko asher yazmu la asoth, in everything they imagine to do. He was saying that since they are one united people, and since the language is the same, they began to build this tower. They began to build this city in Shinar, and they began to build a tower. So he said that since they were in this state, that anything that they would imagine to do, they would be able to do when they were at one language and one lip. 11:7 goes to say, Haba nirda, come, we will go. This is the Elohim speaking to the angels of the presence, And he says, Wenabla sham sefatam, and mix up their language. Wanabla, we're going to mix up their language. We're going to confuse it. We're going to confound it. So he didn't change any languages. He took the same sounds when people were at one lip and he confused them. Asher lo yishmeu ish, so that no man could understand sefa re'eu, his neighbor's language or his neighbor's tongue. His neighbor's words. He couldn't understand it, so he mixed it up so that the person who was standing next to you, this was before there was a color division, this was before there was a family division, and after this is when eventually he's going to divide the families. Okay, so we see in those two verses right here in 11:6, 11:7 that Yahweh said that the people at one lip and at one voice and one lip and one dialect and one language, that they was trying to build a temple to the heavens, and this is something that he really permitted. He did not want to happen. He prohibited, And so he said that he was going to go down there and mix up their languages so that no man could understand his neighbor's language. Now, so we see that this happened before there was even the children of Yasharel, that Yahweh separated the languages, that no man of all people would speak the same language. So this is where I went into. This is why I broke that down earlier when I was saying the children of the people of Canaan, the people of Mitzrayim, the people who were in Shinar still, they all would have spoke a similar language like today. how the Shemitic languages are very similar, but they were mixed up. They were a little bit different. And the children of Israel were comprised of a multitude of people who were from that area. See, the bloodline is Judah. I mean, the bloodline was Jacob, his people, through the bloodline of, his father Yitzhak and Abraham, which we know to be Abraham. But they were around a bunch of people who all spoke different dialects because Yahweh separated the languages, not human beings. But this did not change them from understanding each other. So we're going to go into Judges 12, 5, and 6, to show you that the children of Yasharel had actually different accents amongst themselves. Now, the story of where we're going to pick up what's going on is that there's a family of people from Gilead, which is one of the children of Ephraim. His people lived in a certain land. Okay, and not Gilead. Gilead was from Manasseh. I'm sorry, Gilead was from Manasseh, and his people were into a beef with their brethren Ephraim. Remember, but both of these are the Egyptian children. They were Egyptians, so it's automatic that they would have spoke a different language than the rest of the children. But we're going to go into 12 and 5. It says, Wayi elekod Gilead, and Gilead sees eth Mabroth Hayardain Lafraim, the crossings of the Yardain, okay, or the Yarden River, the Jordan. We Hayakim Yoru Felite Ephraim. And it came to pass that when fugitives of Ephraim would say, Eborah, I will pass over, why Yomeru lo anashe Gilead. Then the men of Gilead would say to him, Ha Ephrati ata, you are an Ephrati, or you are an Ephraimite. Okay? And he pretty much, and it says he would respond by saying, Wayomer lo, but he says no. So it says Gilead sees the crossings of the Jordan, the place where the people would pass over in the Jordan River, to Ephraim. And it came to pass that when fugitives from the people of Ephraim would say, I'm going to pass over, that the men of Gilead would say to him, you are an Ephrati. They would point it out to him, but he would say no. Now you would think that if they didn't look the same, they would automatically say, well, you don't look like me, so I know that you're not. But they're brethren. But notice what he's going to test them with. Look at the test that he's going to use in Judges 12 and 6 in order to determine, was he an Ephraimite or an Ephrati, or was he from the Manassehite, okay, or the Manassehites. He goes on in 12 and 6 and says, Wayomeru lo, and then they say to him, Emarna Shiboleth. Please say Shiboleth. Wayomer Siboleth. But he would say Siboleth. Okay, Walo yakin ladaber kain, and could not fix his dialect or his speech, his tongue to say so. Wayochazu oto, and they would seize him, wayishchatuhu, and killed him, il mabrot hayardain, at the crossings of the Yarden, wayifol bachet hai, and at that time perished Me'ephraim abarim Ushenaim Aleph, 42,000 out of Ephraim. So this is how the people of Gilead would test the children of Ephraim. This is how they would tell the difference. Were you from Manasseh or were you from Ephraim? It was by dialect. He asked them to say Shiboleth, but he would say Siboleth, and notice it said that he could not fix his dialect or his speech to say so. So that's what I was telling people when people was trying to criticize me at first with doing my videos, when they was like, you speak in Yiddish. But I'm like, no, I don't speak Yiddish, because Yiddish is different than biblical Hebrew. Like Yemenites speak Yiddish. It's a more of a country. Like I'm from the South in America, and I speak a little bit country. When I'm not, like if you were just to talk to me, I speak country. I can't help it. But at the same time, when you go to New York, people speak with a different accent. Some people will say here, some people will say here, some people say her, and some people say here. So it's just like we can't help that. It's just because of where you're at. So certain words, instead of me saying shalawam or talawam and tawada and all of that, sometimes it's not as easy for me to do it like that. Or even if you speak with the Messianic, you know what I'm saying? You take the word like wa-ra. It's hard to do the wa-ra. It's better to say vara. It's simpler to say it like that, to give it a flow. But it's just a mixture of all the dialects of the children of Ephraim and the children of Judah over time that has been collected. Okay? Now, we're going to do something else. We're going to go to Nehemiah, the 13th chapter. We're going to go into there and we're going to see how another indication in the scriptures of how, the children of Yashrael spoke different accents, and it was noticed by the Most High. So we cannot, the Most High confounded languages a long time ago, but I'm pointing out to you to where the children of Yashrael spoke different dialects amongst themselves and even different languages amongst themselves. It goes on in 13 and 23 of Nehemiah and says, Gam bayamim hahem, also in those days, Ra'iti et Hayudim, I saw the Yahudim, Hoshibu Nashim Ashdaidiot, that had lived with the women of Ashdod, Amanioth, Moabiot, Ammon, and Moab. Okay, so this is Nehemiah saying he's seen Yahudim, he's seen people, the brothers of Judah, who lived with the women of Ashdod, Ammon, and Moab. They were committing fornication with people that was forbidden by Yahweh in the Matzwah. He told us not to intermix with Moab, Ammon, or Ashdod. Ashdod was actually not even from the same root like Moab and Ammon was. They were our cousins. We were just to not mix with them because of their filthy ways. But Ashdod was actually a foreigner, goyim, to us. It was the people of northern Turkey. But it goes on in 13 and 24, and it says, Ubenehem Chatzi, and half of their children, Medaber Ashdodith, spoke the dialect of Ashdod. Wenam Makirim, and they had no desire, Le Dabar Yudith, to speak Yahudith. Okay? They didn't have a desire to even speak in the language of the Yabarim. Just like some of you people today, you don't even have the desire. You rather speak in the dialect of Ashdod. You rather speak in the dialect of the English people and criticize me because I'm choosing to speak the Yahudith, because it is the language that has been left over. Because it's impossible for us to go back and know the proper dialect of how Moshe would have spoke. They spoke completely different. There's nobody around to tell us that. But notice he says that the people didn't even desire to speak Yahudith. Wekile shon am wa'am, but rather the languages of other people. They rather not spoke, you know what I'm saying? They rather not spoke the Yahudith. They rather spoke the language of these people. Now, I'm going to look at a word search real quick. We're going to look at this word Ashdod, which is Ashdod. And Ashdod was a powerful city of the Philistines on the Mediterranean Sea west of Jerusalem. And this was the development of the Indo-European Shemitic languages, which were used by Hebrews when they started to mix and speak with the dialect of Ashdod. Ashdod was a group of Philistine people, which was Egyptian. But it became the Indo-European because they were a mixture of, the Philistines became a mixture of Canaanites, Europeans, and Eastern Shemitics, especially during the time of Assyria. But during this time, the Philistines was a mixture between Egyptian and Turkish people. So they developed into what we know as the Turkish people, the people of Syria today in modern times. Some of the people who are in Lebanon today are the Philistines. And they use this Indo-European Shemitic language, which is where the V came into play. I'm not going to say that the Ch or the Chet came into play, because those sounds are sounds that are in the Egyptian language also. And the Egyptian language has a lot of the same sounds that we use in our languages. But before I end this, I want to go to the book of Zephaniah, Zephaniah 3 and 9. And I'm going to close it out like this, because I have a couple of more videos that I want to do that's more intricate and detailed as far as in really learning something. I just wanted to clear something up, so the next time, if anybody ever comes at me on one of my other videos and you try to criticize me for using a certain dialect, I'm going to direct you to this video. 3 and 9 of Zephaniah says, Kiaz efok el amim, therefore then I will return to the people, Safa bara, a purified language, okay, Likero kulam, for them to call upon, Beshem Yahweh, the name of Yahweh, Labedo Shekem Echad, for them to serve him with one shoulder. Okay, with one shoulder. He's going to return to the people a purified language for us to call upon the name of Yahweh in the day of Yahuwah, is what he was speaking about here. So right now, in the state that we're in our captivities, in our diaspora across the world and to the four corners of the world, Right now, I'm just gonna say to brothers and sisters out there, man, we gotta leave alone the arguments and the battles over dialect and over which way to say the name. I did a video on that. I did a video on now on pronunciation and the dialects of the Hebrews. We had many dialects even in our days. We were 12 tribes, people. 12 different tribes. And so just like if you would have took 12 tribes now and you spread us across the country of America, we would all have different dialects. I got family members from California that don't talk like we talk down south in Arkansas. So, but Hebrew is the basis. No matter whether I say man or man, it still means the same thing. No matter whether I say door or say do, it still means the same thing. It's just that that's my dialect, that's my accent, and my tongue was that way. I can't help that my tongue goes that way. Blame Yahweh. Don't blame me. Don't try to criticize me because I don't want to shalawan, talawan, kabawam every verse. You know what I'm saying? I learned the language and I like the way it flows, and certain things flow better with my tongue than other things. I hope that this informed someone. May Yahweh bless you in your studies and your lives, and may He bless your families. May He bless people all around the world, to the Abarim who are scattered to the four corners, those who are in Asia, Africa, Asia Minor, in Americas, Southern America, and also in the Western Indies. We say shalom to you. May Yahweh bless you. Thank you.
Hail to the King and Lords of Lords. May He protect us from the evil. Hail to the King, Lords of Lords. May He protect us from evil.